This is a great one we got coming up now, okay? So we're going to deep dive AI strategy, and this one is being hosted by Kate Cox, CMO of Guesty.
And I'm really pleased to invite to the stage Graham Donoghue, the CEO of Forge Holidays, who's doing a lot for the industry in how to use AI, how the business is using it, how it works for the industry. And Steve Schwab from Casago, who's also figuring out how that large property management play really works with the AI. So this session is about how are the big operators using AI, and what can smaller property managers learn from that activity. So, Graham, you first. You talk a lot about AI. Where is it really driving value for your business?
Deep breath, everywhere. No, I mean, genuinely, we started the AI journey more than a year ago. And we wanted AI to be used across the whole organization. I didn't want it to be a technology project or a product project. So we came up with the concept of AI for all, where it's really adding value, and I can put a pound, a dollar against it, is processes that were monotonous and repetitive. So the AI is helping us transform those processes. So transcripts of calls, turning it into value add and putting information directly in the hands of decision makers. If I look at photography and image retouching in production, huge amount of value creation sort of going on there. So at the very beginning when we started it, it was mostly in those repetitive, monotonous sort of a tasks, using the AI. It has evolved, and if I look at what's happening now, it's more like really complicated things that humans just couldn't do. Real complicated machine learning activity, building algorithm processes, writing code, checking code, automating it and deploying it in things that would take weeks or months that now take days. Genuinely all over. But I will say it's AI with humans. AI with humans is how we think about it, not AI necessarily replacing humans.
And what single biggest lever are you seeing it? Like, what is the big thing it's driving for you? If you had to pick one of all those activities.
I would say our ability to get things done quicker, faster, time to value, time to cash. We're a product-driven organization. We have lots of ideas. We create lots of things. Our ability to take a concept and think about something and then put it live is the window shortened, to create value. The unintended consequences in the learning we're having is we're finding now the bottleneck is actually not the idea generation. It's the ability to get a lot of that stuff live because we need our data.
Going to come on to that.
Our data has to be completely re-architected in the right way to take advantage of this new superpower that we found.
Got it. And Steve, tell me about how you're putting AI into practice at Casago.
Yeah, with the decentralized model we have with the franchisees, starting from the top and working our way down just wasn't working. So starting with the education of our teammates, of our franchisees, really a culture of embracing AI has been important to us, and watching each of those partners as they learn about how to use AI, actually get over the fear of AI, and then start to be able to restructure themselves in ways that save them time, money. And when you think about the service they're providing, really thinking about the service cycles that are happening, and how do we save the human service cycles by using compute cycles. And at the individual level, as we start to share the information amongst the different markets in place, we're watching a lot of growth happening between them, because now instead of being alone and trying to figure out AI on your own, we have a community who's sharing their ideas, sharing their information. We have Claude Fridays, where they're bringing the innovations or what they've built, what they've coded, and what they're failing on. And it's driving an acceleration of the adoption for the organization.
And what's the single biggest uplift business value you think AI has driven for Casago to date of all that activity?
You know, being a collection of smaller companies under one flag, I think that it's the ability to afford to be able to dig into the nuance of your organization that you just couldn't do before. The cost of reporting, the cost of custom, build outs on the different enterprise tools that you would need to be able to understand BI at that level was just out of range for a property manager that was below, 300-400 units, under $10 million, to be able to dig in deep instead of going to KPIs, but really thinking about, business intelligence and their ability to pull out the nuances of their organization. We're seeing margin growth from that over time.
Got it. Now, I'm going to
show a video.
Huh?
Should we show a video?
Do you want to show a video?
Well, sorry, just because I'm like.
You can show a video.
Yeah. Could we show a little video? We created a little video, just a quick video, just to show you some of the things we're doing at Forge.
So that's the amazing shiny stuff.
Well, yep.
It's very impressive. My next question is, what was your biggest AI flop? So the stuff that you thought was really going to work, but actually you're like, ah, man. I'm hoping you'll give some people some lessons in the audience that says, don't go down that path.
Yeah, I mean, I think, we've had lots of failures in the things that we've done and sort of looked at. I think we assumed that we would build like conversational search and we'd put it live and like everybody would love it and all consumers would be like, having little chats as they do with ChatGPT and all that sort of stuff. We've not really seen that sort of happen. I think we had to go back and learn and iterate on it, and we are going to probably get there, but I think there's some learning there as well. I think the other learning for me was, and this is, I'm not sure this is a flop, but like I got quite annoyed as a chief executive when I'm like, can you not see the future as I can? So why is all the thousands of people we employ not using AI? And it's not a flop, but it wasn't until we had to get quite aggressive with people, and it's not a language I use quite often, but to actually say to people, like, this is where we're going. I'm going to give you the sort of the tooling, but actually you need to do this because if you don't do this in the organization, then you're probably not going to be right for this organization moving forward. So in a way, one of the flop was I just expected naively that people would adopt it if we gave them the tooling, but actually in some cases, some people did, but in many cases we actually had to say, like, it's a non-negotiable. And that, culturally, that was difficult, and we had to exit some people. from the organization. You had to, some people had to leave the organization because of confirmation bias or disability. So, again, maybe not necessarily a flaw, but it was a learning definitely for me, which is you can give everybody all the tools, all the bells, all the whistles, all the gadget, all the tuning. Take a horse to water, but you can't always make it drink. I was dunking it under the water.
But it's so cool, AI is so cool, right? Why
can't you see the future like I can? But that's like an arrogant CEO talking.
Steve, have you got a flop to share?
Yeah, I think when we started off, we didn't really have clean, structured data being put into AI, and the outputs were coming out suboptimal, getting a lot of garbage out of it. Every time we've tried to implement it outward-facing, it's suboptimal. It's just making sure that we have enough context around that. It hasn't been there. Internal-facing AI has been fantastic. We're seeing changes within the organization, but forward-facing AI is where the struggles have been.
Got it. And if, based on your experience to date, what would you say smaller operators should avoid doing? Like, would you say fix the data first? Or do you think there's easier wins out there that they can get more value quickly?
Don't spend a lot of time vibe coding something that you think could be useful into the future. We're seeing people get the vibe code, up to 80%, and then just can't finish it up because they don't have API access, they don't have they don't have access to the proper data, and so it actually is a waste of sometimes time to build these cool vibe codes, and you've got this app running, but now you're doing double entry, you're putting information in multiple places, and unless you have an engineer to take it to the last 10% that needs to get there, limit the ambition you have on vibe coding until you can get to that secondary layer of true integration.
And is that the data again? Is it you have to have the data foundations before you can really see this scale, or do you think?
It's a toy, and it's something fun and novel until you can truly integrate into a deep structured data set that's going to give you the proper context and outputs to make, because without that, AI doesn't like information that's not incredibly clear. It starts to hallucinate, and the last thing you need to do in running your business is work off of bad hallucinations from AI, thinking that it's smarter than you are.
Got it. Coming on to another question. So we talked in our pre-call about AI slop. And actually, I've seen that when you don't check, you need to keep checking it, you need to keep the accuracy right. How do you manage not putting out AI slop whilst you're trying to really push for democratizing this and getting it into the hands of everyone? How do you put the sort of controls in place that avoids that piece?
Well, first of all, making sure from an upstream point of view that you're verifying the data that's going out. Without that verification from upstream, you're going to have a lot of problems post-deployment of the AI that's operated. And then having really good feedback loops. Starting off with the deployment that's limited of who you're allowing to experience it, and continuous feedback loops where you're training the models over time is the only way you're going to be able to improve the model so that it understands what's good output, what's valuable, and what's not.
And same question to you, Graham. AI slop, how do you make sure you don't put anything in the public domain? Or?
I mean, similar answer. I think when I'm seeing a lot of AI slop is internal. I'm getting PowerPoints that are now 50 pages long that have been produced in whatever tool it may be in that. I think we do a lot of training internally to help people understand how to teach the GPTs or the LLMs, whatever it may be, how to actually give better responses and actually how to provide information. But parking that for a second, the data is critical. You've got to get the data in, poor data in, poor data sort of out. And the technical term that we sort of use is reinforcement learning with human feedback. So the RLHF, or nested learning, is one of the ways of doing it. And AI just loves this continuous group. And as it gets better at it, it learns, it gets sharper and sharper and sharper. So, you know, we could have vibe coded the thing that we're demoing out here in like a week. You can vibe code this out of the front end, you can build it. But actually, unless you've got the right data, the right endpoints, and actually it's relevant and it understands what it's connecting up to, it's never going to work. So the reason why it's taken us months to get to where we're getting to is that learning. And then what we needed to then go was to hire and have really clever people, I mean really clever people, data science people in particular, who really understood how to do machine learning, how to do feedback, and actually train the model so it was constantly evolving. And then really sharpen the model again so then it understands customization, personalization, it understands memory, and it understands intent, so it gets better and better. So real constant training these sort of the models is the key thing to avoid the slop on an external facing basis. And internal, it's just about training, I think.
Training people to understand quality.
Quality and actually how to customize the GPTs in particular. And also, I mean, we all know that all the models that you can use behave differently. So we do a lot of training to help people understand, you know, what do I use Claude for? What do I use ChatGPT for? You know, we're a Microsoft house and we use Microsoft Copilot internally. It's a nightmare, it's rubbish, right? You know, I just like, you know, I'm sorry, Microsoft. It's just not very good at all.
Not here, don't we?
But it's an enterprise level integration, and quite frankly, you can give it all the data and all the information internally and knock your socks off, you know, but don't stick that into DeepSeek or stick it into Manus, you know, because that goes externally and you can't not train the model. So we want to give freedom within a framework to people, but we have to teach them what to do and where to do. And we have different levels of people. We have like guardians and AI genies, and we have people in apprenticeships and all that stuff that have got different user rights. And the new thing that's happening with us, with Claude, is it seems to be taking over the world, is like, we keep running out of tokens. And now one of my favorite conversations is when someone in a Friday says, can I please have some more tokens? And we've got like internal dark web going on where people are trading like tokens around because actually they're utilizing, and that for me as a CEO who believes in this stuff is just awesome. And we're spending an obscene amount of money on token optimization.
That's a really interesting point because we're not really paying the true market value for tokens, right?
Not yet, no.
Not yet.
Yeah.
There's a lot of investors who are putting money into the LLMs who are subsidizing those tokens. What are we going to do when the token tax, like,
well, I mean, it's why you're
becomes real?
seeing, it's why, I don't know what your view in the sea, but it's why we're seeing agents. So we have 360 agents doing agentic processes in our business, right? And actually, you have to have agents that have different skills that are doing different things. And Anthropic last week or a couple of weeks ago, they launched like supervisor agent and like managed agents, because whether you're using their Opus model, the Sonnet model, they have different tokens. You don't need to use the sharpest, cleverest model that is like really uses tokens to do a basic thing, but you employ a supervisor agent effectively who distributes it and works out what it is. So we're building all these agents and skills that understands, and I think we'll have to hire someone in finance, and their job becomes token optimizer, because
Token controller.
Genuinely, we're probably not far off and spending $30,000 to $50,000 a month with, say, Anthropic on tokens.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, there's an entire token economy coming, right? So tokens right now are probably 20 to 30% of covering the cost that it actually takes to, cover that compute cycle. We're going to be in a situation when, investments finally start to say, hey, we got to start making money at this, that the compute cost of being able to run this, these cycles is going to be really expensive, right? Now, there's ways to optimize against that, but when you start thinking about token arbitrage and the different ways of how you're going to be able to afford this, unless there's a deep change in the way that the architecture of AI works, we're going to struggle with being able to make AI affordable for everybody, and it's a real challenge coming up.
Was it you I was talking with about the data center in Texas?
Yeah.
How big is that data center in Texas that's being built?
I don't remember how many acres it covers, but if it was a state, that one data center would use more electricity than 36 of the states in the U.S. So it's going to be using an egregious amount of electricity. And OpenAI wrote a paper talking about this, saying that one, we need to make sure that the citizens of Texas aren't subsidizing this somehow, where their electrical bills go through the roof. But moreover than that, the cost to not only build it and maintain it, but then also to replace the GBUs, every 3 to 5 years is going to be incredibly expensive. So the current infrastructure we have right now for AI is unsustainable. From an electrical use and then from just an infrastructure use, it's a complete quandary of how that's going to be able to be sustainable, the next 5 years.
Right, I'm going to bring it back to the property manager.
You asked.
I did. It was really interesting. So at Guesty, we did a survey that said 81% of SDR managers are using AI, but only 23% are saying it's integral to their business. I think, how do you feel about that build versus buy piece? Right, so are you building your own approaches, or are you buying it in terms of the tools that you are deploying? How does that play out?
For us, it's a bit of both. So if I go back to data, and again, apologies, it's a little bit geeky, but to really take advantage of this, you have to get your data. A big business like ours, we take millions of people on holiday. We've got 500 million pricing records sitting in a database. You guys know at Guesty because you're trying to integrate them right now into your platform. Sorry. You really need to get those foundations right. And what I'm looking at is there's some really cool, clever technology out there that is driven by AI that didn't exist 6 months ago or a year ago that are really going to help us accelerate how we build that. That's what I'm going at, and I'm buying in the expertise. The problem I'm finding is some of the stuff is so leading edge and bleeding edge, there's very few people who can do it, and there's not a lot of people who've done it before. So you're like on the new frontier. And I think there's this language around frontier companies, so we look at that. But if you look at the video we had a product called Vivid Stay, and that's where we take static images. We trained a model for about 4 months to turn static images into videos, then into drones, right? AI does that for us. It takes 25 minutes. It would have probably cost, $2,000 or $3,000 or pounds to produce that video before, and we can just replicate that. So we're leveraging AI there to build a product using AI, and then the other example, we're going at best in class to take advantage of capability because it's really bleeding edge on the efficient frontier. So it's a hybrid of both, basically.
Hybrid of the best in class.
Yeah.
And how are you keeping it up to date with all the tools? I mean, you can't go to sleep without a new AI tool being launched, right?
We have 175 tools that we've approved within the organization today, and it's difficult to keep up. It's difficult to keep up. We have a group of people who are constantly monitoring what's going on, constantly learning, constantly tracking our visibility in large language models, feeding that information, and we provide budget. And what we're doing quite often is we're repurposing budget from somewhere else where we're saving money, because we don't no longer need it because AI is helping us, and we're repurposing it back into. We're spending more money, but we're moving money around.
Got it.
Yeah, I think that when you think about building AI, take the Las Vegas effect. Go and play and bet on things that are fun, but don't bet your company on it. The fact is, you take an organization like Guesty, and the AI that they're doing, you're not going to outbuild them. You're not going to have the data engineers to run ahead of them. Their entire organization is looking at AI and how do they create value there. For you to go out and try to build that on your own, I watched the mistakes that Vacasa made, from behind the curtain, spending $60 million on a revenue management system that just didn't work, and then wondering what happened, right? It doesn't make sense to do that. So bet small, play with things, but the truth is AI is changing so quickly. Do you really want to put in hundreds of thousands of dollars to build an AI tool that suddenly is going to be, outdated in tomorrow morning when the next, the next iteration comes up? So I agree with Graham, internal, external, but you parse it by what you can afford and what you're willing to bet on from a sustainability point of view.
Got it.
I think you have to know where your moat exists. You need to know where your moat exists.
Know your limits.
Know what you're good at, know what you're not good at, and then use best in class. And I think you can't do everything. And look, I don't think I'm probably going to win versus 600-700 billion being spent on some of these sort of models where they're trying to build more relevant results. I'm probably not going to win that. Do I want to participate in it? Do I need to know how my product's appearing? Yes. But where I'm going to win is hospitality. Where I'm going to win is service. Where I'm going to win is working with property owners and maximizing their property. I'm probably going to win on trust because I have a big brand. And then we'll use AI as a stepping stone, not a destination.
Got it. We haven't got long left. I'm going to ask you a big question, and then maybe some smaller questions. Biggest predictions about how AI will shape short-term rental and the hospitality industry? 3 to 5 years, not this year?
That's a really difficult one.
No idea.
I genuinely think somebody, one of these big models that's spending all this money is going to find a way of monetizing it and providing much more relevance. And there'll be groups of consumers, not all consumers, who will just be so comfortable using it because it knows everything about them. It has the memory, and it has the relationships, and they have digital twins that will end up disintermediating some of the large players in the marketplace.
Oh, interesting view. Steve?
It's probably going to be Google who'll figure it out.
I think there's somebody out there right now working on code that's going to dislodge some of the OTA traction that we've had. We've all been looking at the OTAs now for a long time and how's anybody ever going to compete with this, right? And there's somebody who's got an idea that's innovative and thinking of search in a way that none of us are talking about, that completely changes the search game in a way that we can't imagine until we see it. And then we're going to go, it was obvious, and there the entire time, right?
Exactly.
I think with the ability for the property managers to have context to their properties in a way that nobody else does, gives them a moat that possibly changes some of the power dynamics. If you put clean data, fantastic and accurate listing information into your own ecosystem, and then context to a place where nobody else could ever reproduce the amount of context that you can provide for that property on your sites, the AI search and context search is going to absolutely love that. And there's the ability to change the dynamics within the booking systems forever.
You were telling me about a really cool initiative you had using AI voice and subject matter experts on, do you know the one I mean? The one when you call them up, get an AI to call them up.
Oh, yeah. So
this one's a really cool idea.
This is a pretty, my friend David and Gotti did this. So we actually have an AI bot call a homeowner, telling them that this is going to be an AI bot, and say, it's going to call you up and it's going to ask you a lot of questions. It's about 20 minutes worth of conversation with a homeowner. Why did you buy the property? What's your favorite experience? What do you love about the property? What do you bring when you go there? What are the restaurants that are close to it? When you're there and you're bored and it's raining, what do you do? Tell me about, would you bring your grandmother there? Why or why not? 20 minutes of conversation about the nuances of that property to be able to structure properly and upload onto your listing information so that the AI reads through it and understands context at a level that, truthfully, the OTAs never will. And even as a property manager may never know at that level. Changes the ability to think about who fits in that property, who's searching for that property, and what their intent is, and does this property fit it?
So I'm hearing a really positive story there for smaller property managers being able to use AI to scale their knowledge, the depth of their human knowledge, to actually compete on a more level playing field.
If I'm going to build it, we had a similar, I know we're going to run out of time, we had a similar one, which we have an agent called Kate. And,
great name.
Great name, yeah. Kate, when our contact center closes at, say, 7 o'clock, Kate then answers the telephone as an AI agent, and we use 11 labs, the voices from 11 labs, which are super cool. We use an automation, so a agentic sort of a platform to do Q&A type thing. People have 20, 30-minute conversations with Kate, and they give all this information, and what then happens is Kate then prioritizes it based on all the different signals we've got as to how valuable that property is for us, and it goes into the workflow in the morning for the humans to pick it up. And it means we as a business have not lost that really good lead for a property.
Got it.
And that was
do
not
you
expensive to build.
Do you tell people it's AI? Do you tell
Yes,
them
we do.
it's Kate?
We do. To C's point, I think we learned at the beginning, you sort of have to be a bit upfront. We actually say, do you want to talk to Kate AI, or do you want to leave your number? We'll call you back in the morning.
Yeah, I think that's the
You
best
will
way, right?
lose trust with your owners and your guests if you don't declare and are very, very clear about when it's AI and when it's not. They will accept AI if you tell them it is AI, but if they think that you're trying to dupe them, you've just lost that owner or that guest, forever.
Yeah, no deep fakes.
Yeah.
No deep fakes.
No deep fakes.
Keep the human touch. Hospitality is a human industry. It's going to be hard to compete with 700 billion. Figure out what you need to buy, what the use cases are. Probably help smaller property managers level the playing field, but know your owners, know your context, know your customer.
Context is your moat.
Very good. I think we're out of time, so thank you very much. Hope that was useful.
Thank you.